with digital, you can just kind of fire off and shoot so many frames where, you're almost not even thinking about it sometimes. You kind of lose it where, like, almost like what you're trying to capture, where film brought me back to that, like, what I'm waiting more for a moment to happen.
This photography podcast is brought to you by Frames, the upcoming printed photography magazine. Here is your today's host, W. Scott Olsen, with another fascinating conversation.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast from Frames Magazine. My name is Scott Olsen, and today I am talking with one of New York's best and most creative and most sought-after fashion photographers, Landon McMahon. Landon, how's everything over in New York this afternoon?
Doing well, thanks. Yeah, everything's great. I'm actually in Philadelphia today.
Okay, well, how are things in Philadelphia then?
No, it's going well. Yeah, everything's good.
Wonderful.
Yep.
You are doing work that so many of us imagine for ourselves. You pick up a camera and fashion photography, working with models, working with beautiful settings and exotic locations, I think is at some point a dream of every photographer. How did you get started? First, just in photography. Do you remember your first camera and stuff? And then beyond that, how did you get started in the world of fashion?
I guess I never went to school for photography. I never was really that interested in photography until about 12 years ago, and I was living in Florida, and I was doing real estate. Out of college, I just wanted to kind of make money, and I didn't really have a passion for real estate as much. I just kind of just wanted to do something, and I was kind of trading some skills I've learned just like in production and other things for this magazine in trade for my real estate ad, because real estate ads were really expensive and I was just getting started, and I was like, well, I can help you put together photo shoots. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if we got photographers from like New York and other places to come down here? And we started having photographers come down, and I didn't really know that side of the industry. I didn't know I was like meeting these interesting people, and they were like traveling the world and working with models and all these crews, and just like it looked very like kind of glamorous from the outside. And I was like, wow. And so that at that kind of moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to become a photographer. I was like, this looks so cool. I didn't know anything about photography. And I remember this one photographer came down, and he had a house with his wife and kids in Florida, but mainly lived in New York too, kind of back and forth. And he's like, I could use someone to kind of almost like at that point, like just carry my luggage for me type of thing, like be like a third or fourth assistant. And so I was like, I'll do anything. So I got out of real estate right away. I started doing that, started traveling, just kind of worked my way up, learning more about photography and lighting and all those types of things. And then one day I met a stylist for DKNY, and she was like, wow, you should like, I at that point I was like, wow, I just want to start building on my own. Like a lot of other photographers, they, out of like school or whatever it is, it's good to learn from someone that's already very successful. Everyone wanted to, like, at that point, that was into fashion, wanted to work with like a Mario Testino, even if they were like just a production assistant at that point or whatever, and work their way up, or Annie Leibovitz or someone like that. And I kind of basically just met this stylist and just kind of moved to New York, and who is my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. We moved together. She always wanted to move to New York, and we moved there together. And I started shooting e-com for these brands. and other brands too. Uh, and it just kind of went on from there. Like a lot of photographers you see today, they kind of just like assisted. They went to school maybe, and then they assisted like a couple like well-known photographers, and then kind of went on their own. Mine was kind of taking the more road of like ecom was starting to get popular at that time, and I was like, I just need to take ecom as more of a kind of like a grad school type of approach,
Hmm.
and um, and just learn as much as I can, and just it was like a everyday thing. You get kind of really burned out, and um, it's not as much creativity involved. So, some companies more than others, but yeah, just kind of.
So, were you doing this on your own dime and then cold calling art directors? Or when you say you started shooting for, that's oftentimes the most difficult step.
It was. So I had a lot of connections with magazines in Florida, and they started um, publishing my work. And then I took that portfolio to studios in New York that had clients that they shot e-commerce for. And then that's kind of how I broke into the industry. And I got that through people that I met while I was assisting these New York photographers.
Hmm. And now your clients include Anthropology and Google and Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus and Google and Lacoste. I mean, it's been a successful evolution for you. You told me once that you inherited your mother's love of fashion and what you called her meticulous eye for beauty. Was she a big influence in your desire to be a photographer?
Definitely. I didn't realize that till later. I'm an only child, and I just remember my mother was really into fashion growing up, and also interior design, just everything. Um, she had really good taste and a really good eye for everything, and she kind of like taught me this is how things go together. And like she always I was always the kid. It was maybe even a little couple minutes late to school growing up, which maybe wasn't the best thing. But because she wanted me to look good in my clothes and everything, so uh it kind of all paid off in the end. But it
Absolutely.
but she was very into that, and that kind of rubbed off on me over the years. And I kind of, looking back at it, I was like, wow, that kind of really sprung me into what I do today.
You were well turned out in the mornings, as they used to say. The We have a mutual friend who got connected by one of my former students. Eliza Hartman is now a very successful model. And I asked her about working with you, and you know this quote already. Um, you said in an email to me that your ability to capture optimism and happiness are a reflection of your own positive energy. And Eliza said that the first time she worked with you, you walked in and started talking like you'd been her best friend for years. And that is what she thinks makes you stand out from other photographers. She says it's not like you're trying to make an image, it's that you want to find authenticity in a model and celebrate that. So talk to me about optimism. Talk to me about celebrating authenticity in a world that is highly art directed and really going after a certain brand identity.
Well, I think first off, now that I guess I was saying back when I was doing like real estate before I got into like my passion, like I didn't know I really even like what a passion was. And then I got into photography. I really do truly enjoy and love what I do. Um, and I'm excited to go to work and work with all these like great people that are really talented, and it's just such a fun experience. Always playing music on set, and always like really good vibes, and just keeping that positive energy. And I think that when I'm a very people person, and I really do kind of strive off other people's enthusiasm. And Eliza is, very like always smiling and really happy. And usually when people meet me, I usually have a smile on my face because it's like, we're going there to do a shoot, and I'm really excited about it. And so it was really easy with her because she is such a friendly person. She's so nice. She's
Mhm.
beautiful. She's a great model, and I think that I don't know. I feel like um, you just you really just have to have a great attitude, and there's really no secret or way. You just kind of like it's you just have to feel comfortable in what you're doing. And I know I have the support of amazing team, so I have that there to kind of give me confidence too. Um and I let you know the models like I just try to really capture what they give me. And if you really connect with someone, then they're going to give you a lot of great things for you to capture. And yeah.
That relationship between subject and photographer, I think, is important, no matter what kind of photography people are doing. You mentioned team just a second ago. Talk to me about a standard team for a New York or an international photo shoot. The art director, the photographer, the model, the assistants, the grips, that kind of stuff. Um, how many people typically are involved with a fashion shoot a high end fashion shoot these days, and who's making the decisions?
um I think there's probably anywhere from like crews with just like 15 people to like 60 people um on a shoot at all times, depending on if you're shooting a campaign or if it's just a catalog, or whatever it is. Different companies, it's kind of different for each company, for each brand. But uh, I think that I don't know. I think it's basically like the art. I work really well with art directors. I know they have a lot of pressure, and because they have to bring back like this great shoot that they promised to their creative directors and their VPs and CEOs of that brand. So you definitely want to make them feel comfortable and good about the shoot. Um, and the more this excited they are, then they can relay that information to those creative directors, VPs, presidents, CEOs, etc. So, and then I tip the art director and creative directors typically just kind of we just go through it. They talk to me. We kind of come up with a game plan. If we veer off the game plan, that's fine. That's kind of what the great thing is working in the creative industry. And then I convey all that information to the models, just kind of like the vibe we want today and what we're doing and everything. And you know the photographers end up looking really good a lot of the time, but the models, like, they at the end of the day, it's everyone. It's the models, the hair and makeup, the assistants, the digital techs, the grips, the PAs, the set designers. Everyone plays such a crucial role. uh, if you're missing out on one of those elements, then the shoot is just not going to look the same. And I know that I feel like in this industry, photographers can get a lot of credit for the shoot. But also, that kind of plays against you, because if the shoot doesn't go so well, then they kind of look at the photographer for that as well. So you do have a lot on your shoulders.
You do, and it is your work that's out there. But what decisions are made before you get involved, and what decisions are made after? I mean, is it the art director and the creative director that says we're going to do this on a mountainside in Argentina? And then who decides cropping and final post production stuff?
So every shoot I do is different. Usually it starts with, your agent sends you kind of, this is the client, this is what they're thinking. They want to talk to you on, a pre-production call, or they just want to get to know you first. Then they want to talk to you on pre-production calls, and so you speak to everyone. You kind of all chat, make sure you have a connection and you're all on the same page. And then they might ask you, like, hey, listen, we want you to help us out, help us, we have casting directors and all these other people, but we want your thoughts on the models, we want your thoughts on the location, we want your thoughts on this. Sometimes they come to you with a very specific idea and say, we're just we want to shoot here, this is our brand, we love this location, we see you for this shoot. They kind of have a little bit more like everything in line, so it's really different per client. Every shoot is different. um, and then post shoot, like everything after, it's different as well. A lot of these larger brands have their own in-house retouching team, which, the way I like to work, in a lot of clients as well, especially now, there's not as much retouching involved. Everything's a little bit more real, which is great. um, it's okay to see like flaws and things, or what people consider flaws, and um, it's I don't know. I think we're moving in like a really cool direction with the retouching. Nothing's overly retouched, um, and uh, there's different things. Like, some of the clients like me to send them a PDF after, like, hey, send me your selects, what you want, what you envision, and then I do a lot of like kind of odd cropping in the camera, so it's kind of a lot of it's already cropped like that, and I kind of tilt my lens a lot. I kind of do all those type of things. I leave a lot of negative space sometimes. I crop in really tight. So a lot of those, I really don't do a lot of extra cropping afterwards. Sometimes I do, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but every client is different and every shoot is different. So it's kind of, you kind of wait to kind of relay that. I like to be a little bit more flexible and not say like, this is exactly the way I work, I have to work like this. I think the kind of prima donna way for photographers and shooting is kind of over. We're kind of over that. We've moved past that, and which is a great thing. And everyone kind of works more together. Um, so yeah.
It puts a great deal of responsibility on your shoulders, though, to understand the brand that you're working for. I mean, for example, an anthropology catalog looks nothing like any Google campaign, and yet, you're the one taking pictures for both. How do you switch, or is it just an intuitive understanding of what should be in the composition?
So you do have to understand the brand, and you have to do your research, and you have to listen to the creative directors and the art directors and find out their vision as well, and kind of mold that into your style. And with a brand like Anthropology, they're very creative and like a very successful company, and they don't mind like the kind of everything being perfect. Like, it's okay if things are a little out of focus and everything like that. Everything is very artistic, and it's such like a pleasure working with them. Where Google is an amazing company. All the creative directors, everyone is so easy to work with. And for a company so built like that and it looks so structured, it actually isn't. They're very into hearing your thoughts, and they just kind of want you to do your thing. And um, but you always kind of, when you're shooting for these clients, you always kind of bring it back a little bit towards the end. It's kind of like, when I know I have the shot, I know I have this really like cool artistic shot, and like we've got it. I kind of like take some safe shots too, because you never know at the end of the day, like who higher up in the company is making the decision, and it's good that to have kind of like options for them, especially now with digital and everything. Everyone wants options, and I think with Google, I wanted everything more in the frame. Like, if I was shooting a Google Pixel campaign, and I wanted the phone was kind of reaching, someone was reaching out towards my camera, and I wanted the phone in the shot, plus I wanted the person's face in focus. And so I would shoot at like f16 or something, instead of shooting at like f 3.2, or I like to shoot really shallow sometimes. And um,
Mhm.
where I knew I had to adapt from shooting really shallow to shooting, with a wide range of like f-stops and everything like that. So you kind of do your homework, and at the end of the day, it's going to be your style, and they're hiring you for what you want, for your vision. Like they're hiring you for your style at the end of the day. Um, so you just adapt as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your style that's going to show through.
I think that's a really important point for anyone that's building a portfolio, to not just have one style or one aesthetic, to have a broad range of possible interpretations. You mentioned options, and that's a good lead into a couple questions that I want to ask you. Looking at your website, there's a number of location shots and a number of studio shots. Tell me about those two worlds. What kind of shots you take either places, why you do one versus the other, and technically what's required in the field, what's required generally in your studio.
Well, I mean, I love shooting both. Some people kind of really gear more towards studio or gear more towards location. I definitely love a mixture. If I was shooting all in studio, then I'd really want to shoot more location. If I was shooting a lot of location, I'd want to shoot studio too. So, but luckily I've had like a nice variation of both, and I love for location. I love the vibe of the location. I try to use as many natural elements as possible, whether it's like creating shadows with palm trees or reflections off windows off buildings, like using that, or I guess I try to use as much ambient light and natural elements as possible. I only rent equipment for if the weather's bad or if it's really overcast or they want a more sunny feel, or um, I really use more of that as a backup situation, where studio is more like, I love to mix window light with, you know continuous light. I love to mix continuous light with strobes, whatever kind of the studio setting is. I mean, I love to bring in as much natural light as possible no matter what situation I'm in, but not that always isn't the case. I always don't have that. So I do love mixing light. I I don't know. I truly love shooting in both environments. The location is there's definitely more elements and things you have to be aware of, like with the background and the way you're framing things. And 'cause sometimes you might just have a studio shoot that's just on a simple background, and you don't have to really worry much about the background. It's more just about the models and like what they're doing, and the the composition and the lighting, and the mood and everything like that. So, and just really focus on kind of what you're selling at that point.
Well,
um,
I think the examples on your website from both, I think, are extraordinary and stunning.
uh,
Another option that you present on your website is between film and digital. So tell me about your love for both.
so I just started getting into film recently, in the last, I don't know, maybe like 3 years. I because I started when digital was really popular. I haven't been like shooting for forever, and I wasn't doing photography or didn't have a love for photography when I was growing up or anything like that. So I never experienced the whole dark room thing or um, anything like that. And I everyone was kind of bringing back film more and more each year, and everything changes so much now. Everyone has everything's so accessible. I always want to stay relevant, and I thought it was cool that some clients were asking for film, and I was like, wow. I was like, before too many asked me to shoot film, I really need to get ahead of this and just brush back up on that. So I, I have a few like Pentax medium format film cameras, and just like Canons, like 35 millimeter film cameras, and Olympus ones, and I've kind of just I really do love the medium format ones, and uh, I know now that I'm the thing that's different about shooting film for me is, for me when I shoot digital, because I'm so used to it, I get a little bit more out of like my crops and stuff. I'm more negative space, more interesting crops and everything. Where film, I if you look at my film shots, some of them are a little more centered than everything, um, which is kind of cool. I'm starting to get back, like the tilt angles with my film, and I'm starting to get the crops a little bit more with it. Uh, but I'm happy that I got back into it, because a lot of photographers today with digital, you can just kind of fire off and shoot so many frames where you're almost not even thinking about it sometimes. You kind of lose it, where like almost like what you're trying to capture, where film brought me back to that, like what I'm waiting more for a moment to happen instead of shooting through and just like, with digital I do see a moment and I do wait for it and capture it, but not like film. And I think film has taught me. I'm really glad I got back in or got into it, because it's really taught me to be better with my digital camera as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tell me a story about a shoot that was just extraordinary. I mean, that everything went right. It was, nothing should be this good.
Well, one of the Google campaigns, the first one I shot for him, I've shot three now. The first campaign I shot for him, I was just getting back from a shoot in Austria, which was like, I think it was 11-day shoot. I was there for 13 days. I was exhausted, so tired. Um, I flew directly into New York, and um, flew in that night and went straight into the Google campaign the next morning. And during these shoots, when you travel, you really don't sleep a lot, and you're shooting all day, and then you're helping edit at night and going through the creative with the creative director all the images from that day, and helping them put together it so they can send it out to maybe some other people that need to see it at the company to see how the shoot's going. And I was just exhausted, but I had such a great crew on that shoot, and we were doing video too, and that's something I've been doing over the last couple of years, and doing more and more of. And so we're shooting video and shooting stills, and it just everything just really clicked. The Google team's amazing. The Google producers amazing. The producers, the creative team, the art directors, the creative directors, everyone was just really open to everything. And at that point, I think I was a little delirious too. Maybe that's why it was so much fun. But I think it was a 4-day shoot, 3 or 4 day shoot, something like that. And it, I mean, it was just amazing. Everything clicked. We had There was like 16 models. Eliza was on that shoot. Uh, it was just a magical shoot, and it turned out really well, and I was really proud of it. And it was just a really great feeling coming off a really great shoot in Austria and going into another great shoot, because we had so many like different weather elements and things in Austria that were really tough, that we made the best of it, and it was very successful. And going in the Google shoot was the same thing. So it's really important to have a really great crew, and it was great to have such a great client as well. And then I remember right when we wrapped that shoot, my family was already in a vacation that was already should have been on in the Virgin Islands. So I flew out that night of the last shoot day straight to the Virgin Islands and made it in time uh, to go kayaking with my son, one of my sons at the time too. So that was, and then I slept for a week after that.
In many ways, that sounds like the perfect life. But we all know that there's the dark side as well. Tell me a story about a shoot that did not go so well.
Mm. Well, before I go into the story, everything does look more kind of glamorous from the outside. When you're going to shoot, you are working, and it helps to be very passionate about it because it doesn't feel like work, but it is a job. And you are working, and it's a lot of like prep, and then sometimes post, and and then when you're shooting it, you have really long days and everything. So you really have to have a love for it. Because at the end of the day, I'm so feel so fortunate, and I'm so happy that I did find something that I'm passionate about, because I truly truly love what I do. I think one particular shoot I'm thinking of, we were in Europe and last year, and I remember, I guess it really wasn't a shoot that the shots didn't it wasn't like necessarily a terribly bad shoot, but it's something that we deal with on all shoots, like whether it's weather or whatever it is. But being in photography for a while, you learn to adapt, and you know what to do in all those situations. But there's some situations that you really can't prepare for, and that was everyone got. It was kind of like a food illness, I think, and
Oh
I
my.
really I remember we for a for such like a big production, we only had maybe like I don't know, in between 15 and 20 people around on set, maybe more like even 15. And I just, people were going down by the day. Like, my digital tech, I remember she like turned around and got sick, like on set, and was like, like had to run off, and my assistant's grabbing the computer, and I'm shooting, I always shoot tethered for the client so they can see what's coming in. Uh, and then like we had PAs helping out with like my second assistant, and like turning into my first assistant. And it's kind of one of those things where you weren't really prepared for that. And myself too, I'm more of like a germaphobe type of person. I'm kind of like, I don't know if you've seen like Curb Your Enthusiasm, more like a Larry David character. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I'm a goner. I'm gonna be next. I'm going down. I was like so stressed
Yeah.
out, and it was very stressful for a few days, and then everyone started getting better. It was a long shoot. It was like a 2-week shoot, and everyone started getting better. So the shoot turned out great, and somehow those images turned out well. And through those days, even though we lost so many like important people that really make a shoot, like our creative director, our art director, our stylist went down, like everyone, we all just kind of pitched in, and like helped out with other people's positions. So it was very challenging. And I mean, but the client was so great, and such an amazing production company, and they just really were all hands on, and like helped us kind of get through those like 3 or 4 days where everyone was really sick. But it was stressful for a moment, but it ended up being all okay on the end. And I maybe even turned out to be one of our better shoots for that client, so it all worked out.
And did you wind up getting sick?
No, no, my first assistant and myself, and uh and the client, and one of the main clients that were there, the more like the creative director, didn't. So the three of us were kind of, uh, somehow didn't get it.
You lucked out there.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions. Um, Real basic one here. Assume you're somebody listening to this podcast and you're thinking, I really do want to do fashion, but I haven't got that portfolio yet. I haven't got anything to show anyone other than, pictures of family or something like that. What advice have you got for somebody who's got the desire and is just starting out?
I don't know. I really think that, the more you practice, like I said, some other people take different roads where they just go to school maybe for photography, and they go straight to assisting, maybe a already successful photographer, and she or he like gives them opportunity to, they kind of break off from that and then kind of go and build their own clients. I think, these companies that have e-com studios, I really think that it's really good if you can get in even as like an intern to like a e-commerce studio or something, and show your interest in photography, and maybe like really kind of build your portfolio on your own, like, whether if you love like portraiture photography or fashion or anything, and maybe like a local store will be kind and let you use their clothes, and you have a model. It's kind of like all these people that you meet in the beginning, like you just find people that basically have the same goals as you, because those people, even if they're not already established and they're not in that, they're kind of coming up with you. So all the people that you meet in photography school and all this, like, they're people that might end up being in a position before you, that they can give you a shot at, something. So if there's an art director or a stylist, or, it's a lot of it has has to do with people, but you do have to have the work behind it. You do have to just start from the bottom and just shoot whatever you can and just kind of mold your style, whether it is shooting family or photojournalism styles or portraits of people, or, and once you have that, all that under your belt, and you've worked enough where you have enough, someone, will just give you a chance. And I think working with all these other creative people, you kind of all come up at the same time. And um, I don't know. I think that, you just really have to be flexible, because you're going to get shot down a lot. And, there's going to be times where you really got to do all this like other work and assisting and other things. I think if you could just be a production assistant on set or anything, like, these aren't things that you're necessarily going to be like so happy to do, but in the end goal might seem so far away, but it's a lot closer than you think. I really thought like I was like always too nice to people, like when I started out, and I think being nice to people actually paid off, because there's all these people that were not really disrespectful, but they were like, "Oh, Landon's, he needs to shoot more like this," or "I wish he could. We would hire him if he could be more like shoot more like this photographer does," or everything. And those same people are some of the people that are hiring me now. And at the end of the day, when they show me an inspiration deck, it's a lot of it's just my work, and they're like, "Just do what you do and shoot these things." And that was kind of like a breaking point for me. I was like, wow, no one's really asking me to shoot like anyone else anymore. They're asking me to shoot like me. They want me to do what I do. They want my work. They want my vision. And, um, like, I think learn from someone that is already successful, and learn from, and goes for anything. I feel like there, if you find yourself in a position where a person is not, if you don't have like a cheerleader, if you don't have a person that like wants to see you succeed, then switch it up, and it's okay. Find a different path, find a different person, because once you find that person that's already in a position that wants to see you succeed, then that's a good position to be in. If you have a person that's there for you that wants to see you succeed. I remember doing ecom, and there's this one creative director was like, you're doing all this side work, you're really hustling, and this location stuff you've been doing like just kind of on your own looks great. Let's do a shoot for this brand. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm flying to Mexico to shoot, or Portugal or Austria, and all these different places. And it just kind of starts happening so fast. So it really just takes sometimes just one person to really believe in you.
That's wonderful advice. That's inspiring me. um, well, thank you, sir. This has been a wonderful chance to chat with you. Right now, and I have to ask a question: has COVID-19 has that really messed up the fashion shooting world?
Oh, absolutely. I haven't. My last shoot I've done was on in mid-March. Uh, I've kind of been a little creative in between. Like I did this story about my children during quarantine for this publication in Paris recently, and I've just been taking photos of them around the house. Uh, some kind of off where they're not so pretty, like more like just kind of on their iPads or something like that, a little bit more real, and then ones of us also having fun as well. But um, I'm talking to. I actually had a phone conversation with a client today um, that is looking to shoot. This kind of keeps on getting pushed out a little bit more, but a lot of clients have been starting to contact my agent again and everything like that. So it looks like it's going to happen. I'm very positive, but and it might happen slower than you want to for things to start getting back, but it will. Everyone wants to go out there and everyone wants to shoot. It's just they just haven't really quite made the leap yet. So but we see people planning things out for the next couple months, and that was really great to see, and I was really happy about that. So hopefully those dates still stay in place and these things happen. And but yeah, so other than
We'll
that,
hope that leap comes soon.
definitely,
But
definitely, definitely.
well, once again, Landon, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody, this has been another podcast from Frames Magazine.
Hello, it's Tomasz. I am the editor of Frames. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I can imagine you would like to hear more about what we are currently working on. Later this year, we will be launching a quarterly printed photography magazine. It will be a beautifully designed, inspiring publication. I personally truly believe that excellent photography belongs on paper, hence the idea of Frames. To find out more about Frames and to join more than 14,000 photography enthusiasts who enjoy our weekly newsletter, go ahead and visit frames.photography. I would love to have you in our community. Thanks so much.